Hi there, and welcome to another edition of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast, which is brought to you by fans for fans, and where the content is free. It is episode 149 of the flagship weekly show that we do every Sunday. I'm your host tonight. I'm Colin Armstrong. As I say every time, guys, it's not just the pod that we have here at Gersnet. We've got the forums on the website. There's match previews, match reports, all that kind of stuff. There's a history archive on the website as too, and obviously Frankie's got his social media. Lots of stuff going on, so get yourself on there. If you like what we do here at Gersnet, we'd ask you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Put the word out there on social media. We're live tonight. It's a Sunday night. We'll be looking at the game from yesterday at McDiarmid Park against St Johnstone. But the pod will be available to download and stream on a variety of platforms from tomorrow, including Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, Spotify, all the usual places, guys. I'll bring in my guests in a couple of minutes, but I need to give a wee mention. We've got a new contributor on Gersnet this season, Gary Valentine. We have to offer our congratulations because he became a dad over the weekend there. I think it's a wee baby boy he's got. Mum and baby are doing well, so big congratulations from everyone here in Gersnet to Gary and his wife and all his family. And now, so on to the guests. So tonight I've got Ross Bennett and I've got David Fraser. I think I'll bring David Fraser in first because it's actually, in all the years we've been doing the pod, it's the first time. It's the first time I've actually seen your face, David. We've always just listened to one another. And in unusual form, your face doesn't fit what I was expecting.
How you doing, Colin?
Aye, no bad.
I'm looking at myself here. I'm looking like an extra from Captain Scarlet with the eyebrows.
It wasn't what I was expecting at all. I must admit, your voice had projected a different image, and what I'm seeing now is not. And I was agreeing with Frankie when I logged on. I was like, "Who's this guy?" And I was like, "All right, it's David."
A good thing or a bad thing?
It's a good thing. Yeah, it's a good thing. Right. It's a good thing.
We'll do that, Colin. I'll square you up with a score later.
No bother. Aye, the check's in the post, as they say. And also joining us is Ross. And unfortunately, we've seen his face plenty of times before, so nothing new about his coupon. How are you, Ross?
I was fine, and now I've just taken a real knock to my ego, so thank you for that.
Oh, don't give me it, Ross. Your ego's unknockable. I've had a couple of pints with you in Glasgow. I've seen you out and about. I know what you're like.
I'm part of the snowflake generation, you see.
Snowflake generation.
Because I can't take any criticism. I need to have my ego massaged at every opportunity.
Well, I think you're in the wrong pod for that, to be honest with you, Ross. There's no ego massaging goes on here. Quite the opposite. Right, guys. So, I mean, obviously, a big result yesterday for Rangers, and it was quite I wouldn't say a dirty game, but it certainly had an edge to it, and a great result in the end up. We'll have a wee look at that. Another wee discussion about the COVID passport stuff, given some announcements today. We'll have a wee look at the start of the Europa League campaign on Thursday. Ross, I'll come at you first. I mean, the game yesterday, I mean, it was a strange one, I thought, because overall the performance, I don't think it was a bad performance. It wasn't a great performance, but I don't think it was a bad performance. I just think in that final third we just lacked a wee bit of cutting edge at times. But one thing I did like about it was it felt to me like one of these games that in the past we might have dropped points here, but we dug it out. And given that we're now top of the league, Hibs and Hearts drew today, and given that there's this sort of image and viewpoint that we've not had the best start to the season, which you would have to agree with. The importance of that result to put us top, hugely significant, and hopefully it clicks things on now and they push on.
Yeah, I absolutely. I think I agree. I wouldn't call it a bad performance. It was a very robust, very kind of agricultural game, and that's not really a pun about St Johnstone being a bunch of farmers, but it was very physical. It was quite turgid. It wasn't much fun to watch, certainly in the first half, and probably until they scored, really. Things changed a little bit after that, but you're right. We just kind of struggled to create anything. I thought we actually looked fairly solid. We still don't look totally fluent on the ball. There's still passes going astray and things not linking up quite right. But the thing that struck me yesterday was just the lack of creativity, and chances weren't really really forthcoming. I think in that first half, we only really had the Kamar Roof shot, which was kind of palmed away by the keeper there. So not great to watch, not really a very enjoyable game, other than a fantastic goal that I'm sure we'll come on to. But you're right, I mean, a hugely important result. Because it comes in the wake, even though it's been a couple of weeks, it comes in the wake of us winning the Old Firm, right? So, for all this talk of us not having a good start to the season, I don't think any of us would disagree with that. We're not playing as we played last year. It would have been a very 2018-2019 Rangers thing to do, to win that Old Firm game and then screw it up 2 weeks later against St Johnstone. And for a little while, it felt like it might go that way, but. Look, last year on this show, you'd have lost count the number of times that we'd have said, that was a game we'd have lost last season. We can't really say that anymore because we never lost any games last season. But it's the kind of game that in the past, on the first couple of years of Gerrard, going back to Caixinha, going back to Murty and to Warburton, this was the kind of game that would have really tripped us up, I think. And it's a hugely significant result because obviously, look, Hearts and Hibs, neither of those is going to win the league. Rangers or Celtic will win the league. Bookies favour us fairly heavily. But it's very significant for us to follow up the Old Firm victory with a win, reclaim top spot in the league after the Edinburgh side drew today. And that's ultimately all that matters. I don't know if either of you have seen the Relentless documentary, I suppose you'd call it, the season review that's gone out on Rangers TV in the last week or so. But there's a line in there from Yanis Hadji, and it was after like a 1-0 victory that we'd had. And Hadji said, "We're not always going to play that well, but it doesn't really matter if we get the 3 points, because every 3 points is just as important. You know, yesterday was as important as the 3 points against Celtic a couple of weeks ago, arguably more so because we're now the next 3 points is always the most important." So a hugely significant result. To paraphrase Brendan Rodgers, we showed great character to dig out a result there. And ultimately, I didn't really enjoy the game, but I've enjoyed every moment afterwards.
Yeah, it was a bit twitchy at times yesterday, wasn't it? And those are the results I think you enjoy all the more. You know what I mean? It's great to win 5-6-0, but, and it's comfortable. And, when the third and the fourth go in, you can just sit back and enjoy it. But at the end of the game, it's like, right, okay, let's head home or whatever and job done. When you win games in the manner that we won it yesterday, it feels big and it feels important, and you enjoy it more, I think. David, the first thing that really maybe set alarm bells ringing yesterday about the game was when the team sheet came out. Now there was some chat on our WhatsApp on the Friday that Goldson, there was a rumour in the rounds that Goldson had COVID and he wasn't going to be there, and sure enough he wasn't in the team, ending an 81 game run. He played like every minute of all those 81 games, which is quite incredible. He's not positive, he's having to self-isolate, close contact kind of thing. But that did, when you seen that, you thought, oh God, it could be a bit more of a tetchy game or a tight game than we'd hoped for. And it looks like COVID so far this season. Last year the players were in their bubbles, and so there wasn't much opportunity for them to catch it, apart from the ones that broke the rules, obviously. But this season it feels like for all clubs, everyone's out and about. And I've heard people say, oh, well, players should just be straight to training, straight home, and nobody socialising and stuff like that. One, I think that's unrealistic. But two, they've got families, they've got kids at schools, they've got wives going to work or socialising themselves. To me, it's going to have a huge impact in all teams this season. I think we'll see it more this season than we did last.
Undoubtedly, Colin. Obviously, we seem to get away with the prize last season in terms of our main men escaping COVID-free for the most part. But already this season, we've seen Yanis Hadji test positive, and obviously Connor Goldson has had to self-isolate, and obviously the manager and the goalkeepers there before the Celtic game in the return leg in Armenia. So, it's obviously an occupational hazard at the minute. But I would just echo Gary McAllister's mantra there. last week or the week before, and unity, we've got to pull together. The sporting director and the football staff have assembled a good squad. We've got good players, or 2 good players for every position, and we're going to be faced with these upheaval. Conor Golson, obviously, that's a tremendous record that he's got, no missing any minutes of the last 81 games. So that's superb, and obviously given the guy's health issues in the past before he signed for Rangers, that you wish that he would get a clean bill of health to catch up in the time that he lost because he's heart issues. We miss him. I think he's a defender that we should still be looking to keep, despite there's been murmurs about whether he should move on or whether we should cash in on him, etc., etc. He's still a good defender. He's proved his worth over the time that he's been at the club, so he'll be a miss. But as Gary McAllister and the managers echoed this week, you've got to show this unity, and everybody's got to step up, come together, and in the face of adversity, you've got to put your best self forward. And, big game yesterday in terms of maintaining that momentum, carrying over from the Celtic game. As you guys have mentioned, they're a bit of a towsy affair, but we came out with the 3 points, and we've managed to get back to the top of the league as a result of the Edinburgh Derby today and maintain that position. So all eyes now, without talking about a point for later in the show, but all eyes turn to Thursday now. So we've really got to step up, and hopefully we get some right in the weeks ahead.
Is it also, David, like for the guys that are on the fringes, it's an opportunity, surely. You know what I mean? If they've been chapping on Gerrard's door saying, why am I not getting game time? When someone like Golson slips out, Gerrard can say to them, right, now you need to show me why you think you should be in the team.
Undoubtedly. We're obviously the senior member of the backup is obviously Liam Balogun, and he's been on the side of late, obviously covering for James Tavernier in the Old Firm game and slotted into his natural position yesterday. But in light of Philip Hollander's injury, obviously we don't know how bad that is as yet. We're maybe looking to show like it may be a case of Calvin Bassey coming in and playing at centre half, assuming that Barnabaras is fit and available because Jack Simpson hasn't been named in the European squad. So, as you rightly say, it's there's players that have been on the fringe, have maybe been knocking at the manager's door and saying, why am I not getting game time? And then there's maybe these guys are maybe realistic and say, well, the guys that are currently in situ are playing well, and I'm not really any case to to go to the manager and say, how come I'm not playing? But that said, if we're all pulling together, and the managers obviously, spoke to each individual player in the run up to the start of the season and said, you will get game time during the season. Obviously, yesterday, John McLaughlin came in, and maybe that was a bit of a surprise to some that he was starting again. But just, I would say, Steve, he's done it. He's put it this way: he's not got caught with his pants down in terms of squad rotation in the last season, and certainly not so far this season, to the best of my knowledge. So, look, undoubtedly, it's there's an opportunity there for guys that maybe would be seeing as much game time when trying to get a settled team and a rhythm together in the early part of the season, or a chance to come in and maybe stamp their authority, if that's the right word, on the side.
Oh, I think we've seen already this season that Rangers aren't defending the same way that they defended last year. We're conceding goals. We're still winning, but we're conceding more goals certainly than we did last season. However, another point I would want to talk about now is the sort of final third. The front three. We enjoyed 85% of possession yesterday at half time. So you're looking at those stats thinking 85%, and I think the only real chance I can remember was the one that Roof had. He sort of chissied it down and tried to get a shot away, and someone blocked it. Couldn't really break St Johnstone down for all that possession. 5 minutes into the second half, we get done on the counter. Michael O'Halloran runs through, had to be him, of all people, scores. And then you're like, I think a few people have spoke about the defensive side. I think I see a lot of chat about that. We're conceding this season in ways that we weren't last season. But it also worries me that we're just not as effective up front in that final third. We're having lots of possession, but yesterday, the first half was a good example of it, but not doing a huge amount with it at times.
Yeah. It's like I say, I think the creativity or just the chance creation doesn't seem to be quite there. And when it was there yesterday, I mean, the football in the build up to the penalty was lovely. And I think, to a degree, you have to look at, well, what are you up against? And I'm not saying, you'd give St Johnstone credit because they're a very physical side, but they are well organised. They have got a good manager. They knew how they wanted to play, and as Gerard said in his comments after the game, things at St Johnstone are kind of set up to make you uncomfortable. It's not a very pleasant place to be. The grass is really long. It's done deliberately to not lend itself to the Rangers style of play. So I can see that in situations like that, we're not going to create as many chances as we would do against, say, Hamilton at home that we turned over 8-0 last season. But it was frustrating. It was definitely. It's probably becoming a concern because you're right. We're not. It's not just yesterday's game. We are not creating chances in the same way that we did consistently last season, which is a shame. It's the same players, and that we didn't lose anyone over the summer, which was a bit of a surprise. But when things do start to link up, we get into an excellent. The ball into Kent from Aribo was fantastic, and he got absolutely cleaned out and won a penalty. And I'm not sure what it is. Like I say, the players haven't changed. I know a lot of them would have obviously been over at the European Championships over the summer, but from memory, it was more of our defensive players. It was your Borna Barisic, Nathan Patterson, Glenn Kamara, Phil Hollander. So it's not that our creative strikers or creative attacking players should be feeling that fatigue. It is a strange one. It is a little bit concerning and a little bit frustrating. I think in games like yesterday, that's the overwhelming feeling for me is one of frustration. Look, yes, St Johnstone's tactic is to employ that and to frustrate as much as possible through time wasting, through physicality, through just general kind of dark arts, I think you'd call it. But I think Rangers have to be credited for the fact that they got through that. They broke that down. They went 1-0 down, as you say. It had to be O'Halloran, and it was O'Halloran who is their paciest player going up against Phil Hollander, who's a very smart defender and a very capable defender, but he's not pacey, and that's probably he just got himself a little bit tangled up with O'Halloran taking the ball down and running at him. But I do think that the players and the team deserve credit for the way that they came back from that and having a very, very frustrating first half. They would have all gone into that dressing room feeling incredibly irritated and annoyed that they hadn't been creating anything. And it ultimately was a moment of magic from Tavernier, from the captain, who had to take charge of the situation and say, this isn't working. Okay, we've scored, we've equalised, we've got a penalty, but ultimately we are not creating enough chances to win the game, and he does something about it. He tries something different. Again, to go back to the season review documentary, actually no, sorry, it wasn't. It was Tavernier's comments after the game. I think he said the players have been told to shoot more and to try things and have a go. And I'm very, very glad that he did, because it was a super goal. And despite the frustration, despite not creating much, we've come away with a result that we deserved. You might need to unmute.
That comment you've made there about Tav, are you actually seen that though in games? Because I'm not. I still think sometimes Rangers are guilty of overplaying it. There's opportunities to shoot that they don't take.
I'm seeing it. I saw it from Tav in the second half. I think it was 3 or 4 minutes before he scored. There was one where he was more on the left side of the park, and he admittedly put it sort of 3 or 4 yards over the crossbar. I think that Tav, Kent, and probably Hadji, and certainly, of course, Morelos would shoot from anywhere. But I do think that Tav, Kent, and Hadji are the ones who are a little bit more willing to have a go. And it's probably the reason that we all get frustrated at Tav so often, is that it doesn't always come off. But I think, I wish we'd see it a little bit more from other players, actually. I wish that Glenn Kamara, that Joe Aribo, players like that would even Steve Davis. I do sometimes wish that they would have a go a little bit more and try their luck. We've seen some fantastic goals from Joe Aribo. I think there's one from, was it Motherwell last season, that he scored an absolutely wonderful goal. So I do sometimes think, I agree with that criticism that actually we do overplay it at times. I think there are certain players that will try and do something different. But we look at Ryan Kent yesterday. I mean, that boy had no chance to create anything because there were always 2 or 3 St Johnstone players on him ready to take him down. Arguably, a lot more yellow cards should have been shown for persistent fouling on Ryan Kent alone yesterday. But that's what you're up against in Scotland. That's what St Johnstone's game plan was to do. And it was up to us to find a way to come through that.
Well, we did, and Kent got 2 assists yesterday, so you can foul him all you want. He'll still produce. Exactly. David, on the penalty, so obviously we went 1-0 down 5 minutes into the second half. At that point, I must admit, it was a bit squeaky bum time for myself. Like, oh Christ, here we go again. And it's got that feeling of, the 2019-20 season that sort of Ross was talking about. But we came back quite quickly. Good build-up play, good pass for, I think it was Aribo that played it into Kent. And Kent was clever, I thought. I thought he could have got the shot away, but he anticipates the tackle coming in, puts the ball on the far side, and just lets the boy, take his leg and get the penalty. Very, very clever. In my opinion, there's no debate about this, but I have been seeing today in social media that our good friend and colleague, if you want to call him that, Michael Stewart, has been saying, I think he was saying on Sports Scene, that there is some debate about the penalty. Maybe it's something to do with biomechanics. I don't know. But for me, I think Kent won it. I think he was clever in what he'd done, but I don't think there's any doubt that it's a penalty. And even Andy Walker agreed it was a penalty, for Christ's sake.
It's a Stonewall penalty, Colin. I mean, if Michael Stewart, he can great about it all he likes. It was a Stonewall penalty. You could possibly argue that Kent plays for it, but Ryan Kent's one of the best players in the league fouls. I mean, he's not quite in Jack Grealish territory, but he's, he plays in a way that he's going to draw undue attention from opposition defenders. So I don't think there's any debate. It was a Stonewall penalty kick, and I'm glad for Ryan Kent yesterday, because he had a couple of instances in the first half yesterday with underweighted passes, and you're thinking, he's just not clicked this season. And to kind of embellish Ross's points about how the team's maybe not clicking into gear, I think it's important to remember that there's significant starting 11 guys that have had a curtailed pre-season. So I think we're now getting around about the 6th, 7th, 8th game in. We should start to hopefully click shortly in the next few games, and I'm fully expecting the side to move up at least a gear. I think some of the frustrations that we've all been sharing this season is that we've looked as if we've been playing within ourselves, in the sense that there's maybe a couple of gears to go into. I think some of that has been good game management. Yesterday, I think, you looked in the first half, with all the possession, and St Johnstone put, effectively 10 men behind the ball. Even the best teams can struggle to break down packed defences, especially ones that are organised and committed. And for nothing else, St Johnstone are definitely organised. I don't think they're a particularly good side. I think the fact that they were double cup winners last season flattered them. I think it more or less shone a light how much luck and the opposition perform on the day can play a part in gaining success. Those fine lines that Walter Smith always used to speak about. But I was pleased for Ryan Kent yesterday, because there's been much disquiet about his work rate off the ball. I mean, last season, albeit he had a great season last season, but in his previous seasons, we've always recognised as a supporter, as a collector, that even though he might not produce, even though he might take extra touch, even though his decision making not been the best in seasons going by, with black exceptions, you can rely on his work. And this season, some murmurs are just like saying maybe no work as hard as he used to on the ball, or he has off the ball. Yeah, any link outs about he's right off the ball. I think he was back into the groove yesterday. Don't get me wrong, he's maybe taking that extra touch and his sharpness in terms of being potent in front of goal. He's shooting. I mean, he scored some fantastic goals last season against St Mirren. What in particular, I think that was in the club YouTube channel the other day there, or the week, one of the goals of the day. And we obviously, he's a star player. He's one of the key men in the side. You look at Alfred Morelos. Shortly after St Johnstone took the lead, a ball gets flashed across the goal, and Alfie's maybe like Alex out, but Gaza in Euro '96 against Germany. He was maybe 3-4 inches away from getting a connection with his studs and just putting the ball in the net. And you might say that's a lack of sharpness. Yeah, hopefully in the next coming game he'll get up to speed. But I'm kind of. Big thing yesterday was getting the result, obviously. And I think there's more to come. And you could say that possibly they'd won after Thursday night yesterday and they were looking to conserve energy. They didn't want to be doing a lot of, how should we put it, maybe high press that we're used to seeing Rangers doing. So I think it's going to be a tough ask later in the week, but maybe this is just the occasion. As the Celtic game, we went to the Celtic game thinking, we're maybe not quite firing on all cylinders, so this could potentially be tricky. But fair play to the team. They stepped up and they showed a degree of the real Rangers. Maybe come Thursday we'll see another degree of the real Rangers. Fingers crossed, anyway.
Ross, I mean, Roof steps up, scores a penalty. Good penalty, straight down the middle. A wee bit of that run up that I don't like, the wee shuffle of the feet. I always find that a bit nerve wracking. But he took it well. But it kind of provoked this sort of stramash and this ridiculous situation. Liam Craig was in there, Jamie McCart, Sean Rooney, a few others. Now, the first one I'm going to point out here is Liam Craig's attempt to get Morelos sent off. It was embarrassing, and I find it incredible that no one has highlighted this. There's a bit of coming together between Roof and Liam Craig. I don't know why Liam Craig needs to get involved, but he does, and I think that was part of St Johnstone's whole sort of setup yesterday, and more so of late when they play against us. Quite antagonistic, all that kind of thing. But when Roof and Liam Craig sort of start their pushing and shoving, Morelos comes in, and he just comes in. It looks like he's coming in to, try and split it up a wee bit. And the minute he touches Liam Craig, Craig goes down holding his face, and Rooney and McCart are screaming in the referee's face to show a red card. And as I said, I found it incredible. I was actually, I was a wee bit worried. I thought the referee's going to buy it. Who was the referee again yesterday?
Colin.
Yeah,
Willie Colin.
Willie Colin. I thought he's going to buy this. You know what I mean? And because it's Morelos, but luckily, he'd seen sense and just booked everyone. But I found it really bizarre that no one highlighted the sort of antics of Liam Craig and what he attempted to do. I remember when Big Lafferty done it a few seasons ago. He managed to get Charlie Mulgrew sent off. He was hung out to dry for that. I mean, it was in every newspaper for like the following 5 or 6 days. I'm not looking for that level of scrutiny, but I do expect the commentators or anyone to sort of mention when a player tries to get a fellow pro sent off for sort of going down, holding his face and making out that something's happened. And I thought it was really poor. And there's just something about St Johnstone now. I said this to my son yesterday watching it. I was kind of like, they're now on the list of Aberdeen, Dundee United, Kilmarnock, teams that seem to just step it up a gear or two every time they play Rangers. I don't see that level of commitment and antagonism when they play any other club other than Rangers. And it's just like that. You're just like, well, that's another team on that list of clubs that I absolutely hate.
Yeah. It was such a strange incident, wasn't it? I mean, you're right. The boy, and actually, I don't know this is going to sound really bad for someone who's talking on a Scottish football, essentially what is a Scottish football podcast. I don't know which one of those lads is Craig or is Rooney or is McCart. They're completely irrelevant, right? These are players who do not set out to play football. They are there to wind up and, as you say, antagonise and frustrate. So going to take the ball off Roof when he's gone to get it after scoring the penalty, it's just it's exactly that. It's that antagonistic thing. Does Roof react badly? Not really. I mean, he tries to get the ball and the boy's blocking him and standing in his way, looking for a reaction, looking to delay, looking to waste time, and looking to frustrate Rangers. Alfredo Morelos comes in and he doesn't even have his hands up. His hands are down, and it's as soon as he gets within a couple of inches of the boy, you're right, he's down, he's holding his face. Oh, I've been hit, I've been struck. And it wouldn't have surprised anyone if Willie Collum had got a red card out there, because that's Willie Collum's trademark, is that kind of aggressive, panicky run towards an incident with a red card in his hand. Like we've seen, that's his. He's a school teacher by trade, is he not? And he almost takes that sort of disciplined approach of like, right, there's an incident here, I need to get over and sort that out immediately and deal with it. No one would have been surprised if Morelos had been sent off. But in terms of why is no one talking about that? Well, because if the incident in the last week or 10 days with Hart in hand has taught us nothing, it's that the bad stuff is only highlighted when it's Rangers. Right? So that's rule one. So no, we'll never hear about this again. We'll never hear about the time that he went down and tried to get Morelos sent off. And if Morelos had been sent off, it would have been hot-headed Alfredo Morelos sent off again for reacting and raising his hands again. But that's completely untrue, as we also, the actual facts were that happened yesterday. As it was, booking 4 players in one incident, whilst it's fairly rare, it's not a bad outcome for us, because I was convinced that either Roof was going to get sent off for daring to have his head near the St Johnstone player's head, or that Morelos would be sent off for running towards the situation. In terms of St Johnstone, I do not look forward to playing them at all, whether that's because, like I say, they're set up to antagonise and it's just a not particularly enjoyable experience, or because of the scars of last season when they papped us out of 2 cups. Not my favourite squad in Scotland at the moment.
No, I mean, I don't mind teams doing things that they need to do, especially, as we know, money sort of dictates a lot of how successful teams are. Right, so Callum Davidson's got a job to do. I accept that. They maybe need to deploy a wee bit of the dark arts, to try and get a reaction and all that kind of stuff. And again, I kind of get that. I don't mind a good, honest sort of contest and a wee bit of that going on. Right, but when a player just goes down like that, holding his face, trying to get a fellow pro sent off, and it isn't picked up, it isn't mentioned. If anything, there was a wee bit more focus on Morelos and he's in there again, all that kind of stuff. Then you do start to think, right, okay, well, when does this become, at what point is the debate going to be framed in a more fair way? What is it going to take for a commentator? I mean, I was sitting in the kitchen today drawing up the agenda for tonight's show, and I had the Hearts Hibs game on in the background, and within 2 minutes, Andy Walker had a dig at Rangers about, it's good to see an away support and in a derby. And you're just like that. Really? It's Hibs v Hearts, and within 2 minutes of the game starting, you have to have a dig at Rangers. But by the way, let's not forget that Celtic haven't let any away supporters in this season. But that doesn't get mentioned. It's all about Rangers aren't letting the Celtic fans in, all that kind of stuff. And I was sitting here typing away, going, you know what? I'm sick of it. I am sick of this nonsense.
It's tedious, isn't it? And the actual facts of that incident again are forgotten. Rangers had the tickets set aside for Celtic. They had an allocation for Celtic, and all they looked for was assurances that Rangers fans would get in, because they knew that Celtic weren't letting away fans in at that point. All they were asking was, we'll give you these tickets if you can assure us that we will get the same treatment when we come to your place. They couldn't do that. Rangers have been giving are willing to give those tickets, and yet it's Rangers' fault that Celtic wouldn't reciprocate the agreement, and it's so tedious, it's so dull.
I would just have loved to have see that incident yesterday. If it was the other way around, if it was St Johnstone that scored a penalty and someone came in and blocked their goal scorer, and you know, that it was one of our players that went down holding their face, I would like to have seen the debate then. But instead, there is no debate. It's not even getting mentioned. I think we're the first show to talk about it. You know what I mean? I've not seen anyone mention Liam Craig going down holding his face trying to get Morelos sent off. And you know what? I'm just getting a bit pissed off here. But anyway, I'll move on. David, before we scored the winner, there was a wee bit of negative before the positive. Hollander, obviously we discussed earlier on that Goldson wasn't there, so it was Hollander and Big Balogun were the centre half pairing. They looked fairly comfortable all day. Hollander, a wee bit unlucky, I thought, with the goal. You know, he did get a foot to it, and it's just sort of ricocheted off O'Halloran and couldn't have fell any nicer for him, and he stuck it away in a way that he couldn't seem to do when he was at Rangers. Don't know how, but anyway. And then, you know, I think it was about 13 minutes to go. He was in another wee tussle with Hollander. Now, we've all got memories, or certainly I think me and you have got memories, David, of big Kuznets off up there. You know, innocuous challenges that just wipe out a player and you don't see them again. And this one looked very innocuous. You know, he was sort of tangled with O'Halloran at the edge of the box. O'Halloran kind of got the better of him. And in the minute O'Halloran crosses the ball, and I think someone took a shot, it went over the bar. The minute the ball went out of play, he just went down, sort of signalling, right, can someone come on and help me here? And those are the ones that worry me, the innocuous looking ones. And, you know, he's taken off on a stretcher. Steven Gerrard said, you know, his knee was iced up. He was bandaged up as he left the ground. And to quote Gerrard, it doesn't look good. So you worried about that? I mean, obviously we've got the big game coming up on Thursday. We could be without goals and for that. But even just, you know, hopefully not, touch wood. But if it's going to be even a sort of longer term injury, maybe a few weeks or a couple of months or whatever, given how important Hollander is, and given he's a player that every time he plays, Rangers don't lose, how big a miss would that be if this injury is sort of mid to longer term?
I think it'd be huge, Colin. I think we've already seen what a long-term absence of Philip Hollander can do to the balance of the side. I think you need to be a genius to work out that he'll be a big miss. Looking at the incidents yesterday, I wonder if he hyperextended his knee at the goal for St Johnstone, because he obviously played on, and then obviously the second one where he subsequently had to get carried off. I'm just wondering whether he could possibly have been wrapped up in cotton wool after the first instance. He didn't really look all that comfortable thereafter. I'm not so sure that he did. Obviously, as I've mentioned previously there, Jack Simpson's not been in the European squad, and obviously Nikola Katic is on loan, and I don't think we can recall him before January. So obviously Phil will be a big miss. You know, for touch wood, you know, it's a long-term thing, but it's looking probably more than likely he's going to miss Thursday night. And I think I was saying to Frankie before we came on air, it's possibly looking like it might be Calvin Bassey filling in at centre half on Thursday night. I'm assuming that Borna Barisic is back fit and available to play at left back. So, you know, we've not got our troubles to seek there. It's just down to bad luck. Obviously with the COVID situation and a potential injury arising, you know, that's just bad timing. But as we've mentioned previously, there's going to be a test in the mettle of the squad. Can a young player like Calvin Bassey, who's for the most part has looked no bad when he's come in to play at left back, he looks hungry, he looks as if he's maybe went up half a level since the tail end of last season. Has he got enough about him to slot in the middle of defence, assuming that would be the scenario? At the back, could possibly play there. Hollander and Goldson aren't fit, so all I hope is that, you know, touch wood against and nothing happens to Liam Balogun, because if something happened to Liam Balogun, I wouldn't like to think where we might end up. So sort of play for on Thursday night. Hopefully, Phil, it's just, maybe he's jarred his knee, maybe a bit of swelling, I don't know. Hopefully it's something that isn't anything serious. But he's had a knee issue before, I think. Am I right in saying that? Did he have a knee issue when he was at Bologna? Don't know if it's the same celebrity enough, but I
think he's certainly a player that needs to be managed, isn't he? In terms of his injuries, and I think a lot of times when it's artificial surface, he tends to get left out against Hollander. That could be linked to a knee issue previously.
I think there'll be players. We're obviously not privy to what the physical history of players are, and we wouldn't even get to know half it via the papers or the media. So there is obviously load balancing going on. You mentioned there he doesn't tend to turn out in plastic pits, but there'll be times when it'll be enforced upon the manager. Now Stevie saw fit to let go of George Edmondson. And he's obviously saw fit to loan out Nicola Katic, so that only leaves him Jack Simpson and Liam Balogun as well, because the first choice pair, obviously, you would like to pick themselves. Jack Simpson, I don't know if there's any special dispensation to ameliorate the squad in light of nobody's not been available and possibly COVID. I don't think that's necessarily the case, so I think we'll just need to go on it. It's as simple as that, but hopefully, fingers crossed, hopefully after a couple of days it settles down. I think the manager said that they'll need to wait possibly till tomorrow at the earliest to get a scan and when Phil's knee. So hopefully, fingers crossed, he's all right and he's fit to take some part in the game on Thursday. I feel like that, he's not about for an extended period of time when it comes to domestic match.
Ross, on to Tav's winner then, there's not much else you can say really. It was just a thing of absolute beauty. And you know what I really enjoyed about it was, he scored a couple of crackers last season. The one at Tannadice springs to mind, that free kick that he pinged in at Tannadice. But the manner of this, given we'd been 1-0 down, we've lost our centre half before the game, we've lost our other centre half just before he scored, and just the nature of the game and to get a late on winner with supporters on the ground and get the real feel that it's a late on winner and everything that came with it, he's running up to the fans, the players are all there, and it just felt like a proper football moment. Now, we had them last season, I jumped about my living room countless times last season when went that season undefeated. But there is a lot. I saw someone saying there's a real difference between piping sound into a game and actually real live supporters being there. And everything about it just felt like a proper football moment. The goal itself was an absolute peach. There was a great image today on social media of Xander Clark, and it does actually look like someone shot him. You know what I mean? Because he's gave up, so he's just basically jumping in the air. Both hands are down by his side, and it looks like someone's just taking him out with an AK-47. The way that the ball went into the net. I was hearing stuff today as well that Richard Gordon and it might have been Michael Stewart were moaning yesterday that it wasn't that good a goal. It never even went in the top corner. All that sort of stuff. I thought everything about it. I thought there was a wee bit of Beckham about it, if I'm being honest. The dip in the ball, the sort of trajectory that it took. It struck me as the sort of goal that he scored back in his sort of pomp. But an absolute cracker, and one that was made better with the fact that there was fans there, and you got that real sense of a big moment in a game. Yeah,
it was a really smashing moment. It was. That. What it's like. You're in a football ground, and the noise as the ball hits the back of the net, and then a quarter of a second before the fans realise what's happened. That sort of, and then the explosion of noise and of relief and outpouring and emotion. That was fabulous to see. The limbs going mad behind the goal, because it's we've waited long enough. Obviously, it's not the first goal that we've scored in front of fans this season, but it wasn't just about fans being back in the stadium. It was about supporters' buses running again, and people getting back to their match day rituals and the routines, and it's
also about St Johnstone charging Rangers fans £10 more compared to the home fans as well. We can't forget that.
Is that right? I didn't know that. I mean, that's
why they're on the list. That's why they've made the list. Everything about them now.
Literally the blue pound, isn't it? But the goal itself, I mean, I don't even begin to understand the physics of that. How you hit a ball that hard and that fast and get that shape on it. And anyone who says it's not that good a goal, didn't even go in the top corner, is either, and I suspect in the case of both Mr. Gordon and Mr. Stewart, either deliberately trying to underplay it because they're so bitter that they can't bring themselves to acknowledge a good goal when they see it, or they don't understand football. They don't understand what a good goal is. I mean, Xander Clark's a good goalkeeper. He's a decent keeper. He's also not a short guy. He's a big lad. He was nowhere near it. He was nowhere near the ball. It was, Tavernier has had some wonderful, wonderful moments at Rangers, taken away, obviously the moment of lifting the trophy, but, he scored on his debut at Easter Road against Hibs in the Petrofac Cup, as it was at that time.
Yeah.
He scored another free kick that same season in the league against Hibs. I don't know if you remember that one, but it was
I remember that one. That was a peach. He scored the free kick against Celtic as well.
He scored the free kick against Celtic, the one where it almost looked like a cross into the box and no one got a touch on it a couple of minutes into that game. The Dundee United goal was special. That goal yesterday is for me the best goal I've seen him score, and it's one of the best things I've seen him do as a Rangers player. Because it was also, as I said earlier, we were not creating anything and we needed someone to step up and do something about it, and that's exactly what he did. And it would have been very easy for him not to do that, because the criticism that he gets from our fan base is incredible at times. He's one of the few players that will actually try something different, take something that's not always going to work out because he's not playing for Real Madrid, So it would have been easy for him to just hold the ball, look for a pass, try and get the ball into the box. But he's had the bravery in a time that, we had 15 minutes or so left of that game. Fans were getting nervous. It was very, very edgy. And he's taken it on, and he's scored with a wonderful moment. I mean, I don't tend to watch sports scene. I don't particularly care what Celtic's goals look like. I certainly don't care what Dundee United versus St Mirren or whoever it was that was also playing. I don't really care what their goals look like, but I'd be amazed if there was a better goal scored, certainly this week in Scotland. But
probably all season.
It's a very early contender for goal of the season, definitely.
Last sort of comment and point on the game, David, before we move on. I think the manner of the victory needs to be sort of highlighted, because a lot of questions have been asked about the character of this team, and sometimes historically it's came from ourselves. Certainly in this show, in previous years we've questioned the character of this team. Last season we couldn't really question the character because they just blew everyone away, and they were just on another level last season. The cycle of that team had sort of peaked, and no one could really live with them. And so I don't think there was the only game I felt there was a real level of character required was that Motherwell game at Ibrox, when it was really tetchy and we scored a couple of goals towards the end. But this season, we've not been hitting the same heights. We've already had that disappointment at Tannadice, we had the disappointment at Malmo. Lots of pressure, lots of questions, lots of people saying we can't play in front of crowds. 1-0 down after having 85% of possession. To turn that around, I think that shows that this team has got the character. And, if you're expecting Rangers to slip up on that front, then you could be in for a long wait.
Definitely. Colin, I think yesterday's performance was, that was the mark of champions. A resilient Rangers performance. I'm just thinking that our chums sitting in their cars going through to the East End for the game yesterday. They would have been waiting us dropping points yesterday, and when that goal goes in, they must have been like, oh, here we go. Thankfully, I concur wholeheartedly, mate. a goal, a goal. But, you know, people always think that James Tavernier and the team, legitimately, yesterday, that was his responsibility. I mean, he had a shot, he had a curler from the opposite side of the 18-yard box shortly before he scored. And it was a sighter. It was just over and slightly wide. And that goal was just, you know, that was a skipper taking responsibility. And you might say, cribbling it over the bar, it could have, the keeper, Xander Clark, could have saved it. No, nobody was saving that. And that was a moment where someone who has the degree of security that last season had brought them, where he stood up, taking responsibility and say, you know, I'm going to need to try something different here. And it's come off. And the fact that they didn't pick, they didn't, despite, you know, Liam Craig's best efforts, they didn't get involved. And they put down a marker yesterday that, you know, Rangers side, you know, they've had a bloody nose early in the season. They went to Tannadice and they slipped up. They were well off the pace. And they've looked lethargic in the early part of the season. And yesterday, you know, they didn't create a lot. It was frustrating, you know, maybe in the final third, it was lacking that, you know, I'm using cliches here, that cutting edge that we always speak about. But yesterday, when the chips were done, you know, there was the collective mentality that, no, we're not up here. We're going to collect maximum points. We're going to show everybody in this league who the champions are. And that's, you know, that sets a standard. You know, if the next time it's about nip and tuck away from home, even at Ibrox, they can call up and that, oh, well, look, let's think back to when we were scrapping for some form and some food. And the moment I'm like, you know, goes to the all important 3 points. So that's it. That last season, the team was excellent, and didn't ship a lot of goals, albeit in very, very unique circumstances that no side has been used to. But yesterday, with the fans behind us, 2 ends by goal, and a significant portion of that main stand, the boys delivered, and all power to them.
Right, guys, before we sort of go on to a couple of wee topics before we finish up for tonight, I need to highlight our partners, Football Prizes, and the prize that they've got going for us at the moment. It's a Neil McCann signed and framed Rangers shirt. It's from the 99 season, the season that he scored 2, that wonderful day we won the league at Celtic Park. Signed by the man himself. Tickets cost £5.95. There are 65 tickets available for this. How many of those are left? Sorry, I don't quite know that at the moment, but there are 65 in total. The competition deadline is this Wednesday, the 15th of September at 7:30 p.m. So get yourself onto www.footballprizes.co.uk if you want to be in with a chance of winning that Neil McCann signed shirt. Guys, Ross, I'll come to you quickly on this one because, you know, clock's against us a wee bit. I thought we would quickly, myself and Stuart spoke a wee bit about this on Friday night there for the preview show. This announcement that they're bringing out the COVID passports for large events over 10,000, I think it is, which will obviously impact in Ibrox for every home game. Now, I mean, there's a couple of things about this. Now, as I said on Friday, I don't disagree with the concept, and I can understand why people are making these decisions have came to this decision. I think the one thing they want to avoid is another lockdown. Cases are going through the roof, so they're looking at options. Although it's interesting to see that the UK government have announced today that they said they were going to do it, and now they're scrapping it. So who knows? Things might change. But I understand the reasons behind it. Okay, I get that. It's more is it fair on people who, you know, are a bit reluctant about taking this vaccine, given, you know, it was developed fairly quickly. I know someone like that who's a season ticket holder, you know, so he's coughed up for his season ticket at the start of the season. Now he's been told that unless he's double jabbed or has a really strong legitimate reason for not being double jabbed, he's not allowed to go to this event. Is that fair? And also, how are the club going to manage this? It seems to me it's another layer of bureaucracy, and let's be honest, they're not the best at a lot of this stuff, as some of us can testify. So I'm a wee bit worried about that. And also, why are the players not under the same scrutiny? Do they need to be double jabbed in order to play? So there's lots of questions. But the main two I would ask you of, is it fair, and how do you feel about the club ability to handle
it? Look, no one's thinking of me as a sharp legal mind of our generation, right? I think that there probably are sort of significant legal questions to this. Can you do this? Is it a human rights issue? So I'll kind of put that to one side, because I wouldn't even know where to start with that. Is it fair? No, probably not. Probably isn't fair. There are legitimate reasons that people wouldn't get the vaccine. Look, I'm double jabbed. I took the vaccine, and I would take it again, and I would go as far as to encourage people who haven't done so to seriously consider it and think about your reasons as to why you would or wouldn't want to. But at the same time, you have to accept that there are reasons that people either A, wouldn't want to, as you referenced with the chap who is worried that it'll be developed too quickly, and has that gone through enough rigorous testing, through to medical reasons that you can't, right down the way to, I mean, I'm fairly sure that there will still be some adults in Scotland or maybe in the UK who just haven't had their time to be double jabbed yet. You know, the rollout might not have got to everyone by this stage. So is that fair? That's certainly not fair on them. That said, there's not been much that's been fair about COVID over the last couple of years. I mean, we will all know people who have suffered and have been, horribly impacted by it. So it's just another one of these things in a long line of unfair incidents to do with this disease. And that's no one's fault, unless you want to go and find the guy in China who ate a bat, allegedly. Look, and again, I don't want to turn this into a political issue, because believe you me, there are political issues that can really go after, and we've seen that the last couple of weeks. But I don't think it's possible really to say what the right or the wrong thing is with regards to this. I don't think it's fair, really. I think if you have a legitimate reason to not want the vaccine or be unable to have the vaccine, this must really hurt. When it comes to then the question of refunds, I mean, Rangers aren't liable for that refund. It's not their decision. The SNP certainly aren't going to be handing out £500 to Rangers fans who decide not to get vaccinated. That's probably not a good look for them in terms of their PR. So I don't know what the answer is there. I really don't. Then in terms of the practicalities, well, Colin, you know better than anyone else that Rangers is not the best at actually getting fans a ticket in their hand and getting them through the turnstiles. Ticket office is a shambles. Security and stewarding at times can be left wanting. Season ticket access, as you found out at the start of the season, is temperamental at best. So now adding another layer of is there going to be a chap at the door demanding to see vaccine passports? Is it okay to do that the first time that you go, and then it'll be logged against your season ticket? Well, what if I lend my season ticket to a mate? It just doesn't. I don't know.
It opens up a lot of questions. That's for sure. It does. And what about supporters buses who get an allocation and they've got five tickets left over? How can they recoup that money by selling them on?
Exactly. It's impossible. If you're Stuart Robertson, how the hell do you manage that? Yeah. What's the club supposed to do other than urgently get on the phone to the SNP? Because again, I have no knowledge of the situation, but I will bet anything that no club was consulted about this. So how do we manage it?
I think we have to be fair here. It's not just football clubs that are affected.
No, of course.
And I do think that is one of the accusations from people who are affected by this. So like, well, we weren't asked. I feel for the likes of, say, I don't know, Partick Thistle, right? Partick Thistle, most weeks they're not getting 10,000 at a game. But
they might for certain events, or Dundee United or Ross County. Is that now the days of selling tickets on the door? Is that gone?
See what I think could happen with those kind of grounds. Those clubs where they don't get 10,000 quite a lot. There'll be a lot of clubs in the top flight who say, well, the only time we've reached 10,000 barrier is when Rangers or Celtic come to town. Mm-hmm. Rather than go through this whole thing, I think you might just see them limiting the capacity 9,999.
Right, but then what's going to happen is that when Rangers and Celtic come to town, they don't want to go through the hassle of, vaccine passports and everything, so don't give us any tickets.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They'll limit the amount of tickets. That's what I mean. So everybody loses.
Impossible situation. It really is.
It is. I'm not looking forward to it. I think we're at home on the 3rd of October against Hibs. That's the first game. And as I said on Friday night, I'm already resigned that I'm not going to get in that day. I'll be standing outside with another 2,000-3,000. It's a certainty. David, final point for tonight. I noticed we're running over a wee bit, so just a sort of quick point. Thursday night, we won't look at the Lyon game specifically because we'll have the preview show, and I believe I've got a Lyon fan and blogger coming on Wednesday night, Tom Abadi, I think his name is. He's coming on Wednesday to discuss who, Lyon and give us a wee insight to them. But in terms of the actual group stages as a whole, over the last 2 or 3 years, we've had a good run at this. We've done quite well in the Europa League, particularly last season. Gerrard got us in that first year in 18-19. Didn't get us out of the group stages at that point. But the last 2 seasons he has. So, I mean, what's your ambitions this year? Can you think we can go one round further? Or do you feel the way the team's performing at the moment that maybe the last 2 seasons have been the peak and we've kind of hit the glass ceiling in that respect as far as where this team can go in this tournament?
Yeah, it's difficult to tell, Colin. I'll possibly sit on the fence slightly here and say that I would temper my enthusiasm about where we can end up in the tournament by saying that baby steps. We're scratching for form just now. So I think let's get Thursday night out of the way, put in a good performance, hopefully collect maximum points, given it's a match at home, and then start to try and build some momentum in the group. When the draw came out, I thought it was a reasonable draw. Obviously, Lyon are a decent name. Sparta are a decent name in Europe. And Brøndby, whilst they've not necessarily hit the heights of, maybe Danish sides in yesteryear, they'll be nobody's mugs, shall we say. So, and we aren't good enough as a team and as a squad to, dismiss any opponent that we come up against in the Europa League. And also, the standard of the competition is arguably getting better. So it's great to be there again. It's obviously a good achievement by the team to make the groups again. It's great for us as fans to get the home match package, and if economics and ticketing allows, we get an away day to some nice cities in the continent, and it's all good. It keeps the level of interest high. It keeps the level of sharpness amongst the squad high, because you're going to come up against quality players. I just did a look through the Lyon squad there earlier before we came on air, and we've obviously got a couple of signings. Xherdan Shaqiri's moved to Liverpool, so there'll be good players. Without stealing the French lads' thunder for the preview pod, I noticed that the league fixture, they play PSG a week tonight, so it could well be the case that they may well rest some of their top stars with one eye on their league fixture. And I think they're also impacted by COVID. So we don't know. We need to turn up. Obviously, we've got a potential injury headache. But as I've said to you previously, it's all there for the players, the management. It's there for us to go and put a performance in. The fans will be behind us, behind the team. As we've seen at the Celtic game, the atmosphere was electric. We've waited a long time to get into the stadium again for big games, and I think it couldn't. This fixture couldn't come at a better time. But we're looking to try and go up the gears and in a real performance. And I think that, I'm looking forward to Thursday night. Yes, it'll be tricky. Yes, we're up against good players. But Stevie and Mick and Gary and Tom have shown a nous in European football that we're not going to be taken apart. Even if we are, subpar in terms of our first choice 11. We might not be at full strength, but hopefully that will not be the case, touchwood. But I'm looking forward to it. And we're better being in there as not being in there. So, bring it on.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Really looking forward to Thursday night. And hopefully we'll get a result. Right, guys, that's us. We've run a few minutes over tonight, so probably best to wrap it up there. So a big thanks to David Fraser and Ross Bennett for their contributions tonight. Great stuff from them, as always. We'll have a show on Wednesday night for the Leon game. We've got the preview show, as I said earlier on. We've got that Leon fan and blogger coming on. We'll also have a preview show on Friday, and we'll have the main show next Sunday as well. In the meantime, get yourself onto the Gersnet website and forums at www.gersnet.co.uk. Guys, look after yourself. As I said earlier on, cases are kind of going up again. So look after yourself, test yourself regularly, all that kind of stuff. And until next time, bye for now.